The rich and the poor breathe the same air, walk the same streets, and live under the same sky. But they don't live in the same world, because the rich see opportunity while others see obstacles. The difference isn't in their environment, it's in their eyesight. Wealth isn't hidden in secret places, it's hidden in plain sight, behind the lens of perspective. Change the way you see, and suddenly the doors of possibility begin to open. Let me tell you something that changed my life. Many years ago, you don't get rich by chance, you get rich by change. Wealth doesn't start in your wallet. It begins in your mind. The mind is the factory of your fortune. Every dollar you earn, every opportunity you attract, every door that opens or stays closed, all of it is built from the invisible architecture of your thinking. If your thoughts stay small, your results will follow. You can't think poverty and live prosperity. You can't dwell in doubt and expect abundance. The soil of wealth is the mind, and whatever you plant there, discipline or distraction, faith or fear, that's what will grow. When I was a young man, I used to complain that life was unfair. I'd say if only I had more money, I could do more. But the truth is, money doesn't change who you are, it amplifies who you are. I didn't need more money, I needed better thinking. Once I understood that, everything shifted. I stopped saying I can't afford it and started asking, how can I afford it? That single shift from limitation to possibility began transforming my life. You see, the poor think in terms of cost, but the rich think in terms of value. The poor think of survival, but the rich think of strategy. It's not the economy that determines your income. It's your philosophy about the economy. If you want to change your earning, start by upgrading your thinking. Don't rush to buy new clothes, a new car, or a new house. Buy new thoughts. Feed your mind ideas that stretch it beyond its comfort zone. Read books that challenge your assumptions. Spend time with people who force you to think at a higher level. If you hang around complainers, you'll adopt their complaints. If you hang around creators, you'll adopt their courage. You attract the level of life you prepare your mind for. I remember sitting down one night, broke and discouraged, and writing in my journal, what do I really believe about money? I discovered I had inherited beliefs from people who were doing their best, but who were broke themselves. They taught me money was hard to get, that rich people were greedy, that success was luck. None of it was true, but as long as I believed it, it controlled me. Once I identified those beliefs, I replaced them. I started saying, wealth is a result of value, and then I got to work creating value. I stopped chasing comfort and started chasing growth. So, here's the question. What are you thinking about every day? Because your dominant thoughts become your dominant results. If you think opportunity, you'll start noticing it. If you think limitation, you'll keep proving it. Change your thoughts, and your income will follow. The secret to earning more is becoming more. And the secret to becoming more begins with what you allow to live in your mind. When I first started working, I was taught that the way to get ahead was simple. Work harder, longer, and faster. And for a while, I believed it. I worked sunrise to sunset, 7 days a week, thinking that someday all that effort would make me rich. But one day, someone told me something that stopped me cold. They said, you're working for money, but the wealthy make money work for them. It hit me like a brick. I realized I had been serving money like a master instead of using it as a servant. That was the day I decided to change how I saw money, not as something to chase, but as something to direct. The poor work for money because they see it as the destination. Their goal is a paycheck, and once they get it, it's gone, spent, traded, consumed. But the rich see money as a tool. They understand that $1 can buy you a cup of coffee, or it can buy you a seed that grows 1,000 more. The difference isn't in the wallet, it's in the wisdom. You can have a lot of money and still be poor if you never learn how to make it grow. Real wealth begins when you stop asking, "How much can I earn?" and start asking, "How much can I make this dollar earn for me?" I remember the first time I truly understood this. A mentor once asked me, "What happens to your money after you earn it?" I said, "I spend it." He smiled and said, "That's why it never comes back." That one sentence changed everything. He explained that money is like a faithful worker. If you train it right and give it a job, it will go out, work for you, and bring friends back home. But if you waste it, it quits on you. From that day forward, I started giving every dollar an assignment. Some went to work in investments, some went into savings, and some went into education, because the more I learned, the more I earned. The secret is leverage to create systems and assets that earn for you while you sleep. You can only work so many hours a day, but your money can work 24 hours, 7 days a week. Every time you invest, every time you build a business, every time you create value that earns without your direct labor, you move closer to freedom. But you can't get there with a consumer mindset. You have to think like an investor, even if you only have a little to start with. Don't wait to have a lot before you invest. Start small, even if it's just a few dollars each month. What matters isn't the size of your investment, it's the habit of investing. Learn about assets, dividends, real estate, business, and the power of compounding. Study the game of money, because if you don't, someone who has will always be your boss. Here's the truth. Money will either serve you or enslave you, and the difference depends entirely on whether you work for it or it works for you. I learned a long time ago that comfort is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. When I was young, I used to dream of a comfortable life. No struggle, no pressure, no challenges. But one day, I realized that the people who lived comfortably usually stayed average, and the people who lived extraordinarily were always uncomfortable. You see, wealth doesn't come from what's easy. It comes from what's earned through effort, through courage, through stepping into places most people avoid. Comfort is the enemy of wealth because it whispers, "Stay where you are." When life is calling, grow. The truth is, growth demands discomfort. The rich understand this. They dare to face pain today so they can live free tomorrow. Most people do the opposite. They avoid pain now and pay for it later. It's like planting and harvesting. The farmer who endures the blisters and heat of planting season enjoys the feast later. But the one who says, "It's too hard, too hot," ends up hungry when harvest time comes. The same is true in wealth. Every uncomfortable decision, saving instead of spending, investing instead of consuming, learning instead of relaxing, becomes a seed that grows your future prosperity. When I first started in business, I wasn't used to rejection. The first few no's nearly broke me. I wanted to quit, to go back to comfort. But I discovered something. Every no I faced built emotional muscle. Every failure toughened my mindset. I started realizing that discomfort wasn't punishment. It was preparation. It was life training me to handle success. Because if you can't handle discomfort in the struggle, you'll never handle the pressure that comes with success. Discomfort builds capacity, and capacity attracts opportunity. Wealthy people don't run from discomfort. They chase it. They do what others refuse to do. They save when others spend. They learn when others scroll. They wake early, read more, ask better questions, and push past fear. Every act of discomfort compounds. That's how mental strength, financial discipline, and personal confidence grow. And once you become the kind of person who can endure difficulty, life starts trusting you with more responsibility, more resources, more reward. So here's what I began to practice. I started doing one uncomfortable thing every single day. Sometimes it was making a call I was afraid of. Sometimes it was reading a challenging book instead of watching TV. Sometimes it was saying no to something that gave me instant pleasure so I could say yes to something that gave me long-term gain. Those little moments of discomfort built an inner toughness that no market downturn or financial setback could shake. Remember this, the path to wealth is not paved with ease, it's carved through resistance. The higher you want to rise, the more pressure you'll feel. So instead of asking for an easier life, ask for stronger shoulders. Because comfort might keep you safe for a season, but only discomfort will make you rich for a lifetime. One of the greatest shifts in my life happened when I stopped asking, how much does it cost? And started asking, what is it worth? That single question changed the entire direction of my financial life. You see, poor thinking focuses on price, the surface number, the immediate loss. Rich thinking focuses on value, the hidden return, the lasting gain. Most people stay broke not because they lack money, but because they lack perspective. They keep trading long-term gain for short-term comfort, always choosing cheap over valuable. And in the process, they cheapen their own future. I remember the first time I was invited to a personal development seminar. The ticket was expensive, at least. That's what I thought then. I looked at the price and said, I can't afford that. My mentor looked me straight in the eye and said, you can't afford not to. That hit me hard. He explained that I wasn't paying for a seat. I was paying for a shift in thinking. I wasn't buying information. I was buying transformation. That day, I learned that the difference between the rich and the poor isn't the size of their bank account, it's the size of their mindset about value. The rich understand that every dollar has potential energy. When directed into the right things, books, courses, tools, mentors, systems, it multiplies. It grows beyond the original amount. But when money is spent carelessly on comfort, luxury, or appearances, it evaporates. The poor think, if I buy this, I'll look successful. The rich think, if I invest in this, I'll become successful. And that's the difference. One seeks image, the other seeks impact. One buys to impress, the other buys to progress. When you start thinking in terms of value, you begin to make decisions like an investor, not a consumer. Before you buy something, you start asking, will this make me better? Will this skill, this experience, this information multiply my earning power? That's what I call ROI, return on intelligence. The goal isn't to save pennies, it's to grow wisdom, because wisdom will earn you what savings never can. I once met a young man who spent more money on designer clothes than on his education. He told me, I want to look rich. I said, if you'd spent that money learning how money works, you wouldn't have to look rich, you'd be rich. The clothes would fade, but the knowledge would have compounded. That's what value does. It compounds. A book can return 100-fold. A course can open a door you never knew existed. A mentor can compress years of trial into hours of understanding. But you only see that when you stop judging by price and start seeing through the lens of value. So from that day forward, I made a vow. Never let price scare me out of value. If something has the power to expand my thinking, increase my skills, or build my future, it's not a cost, it's an investment. Money spent on your growth is money that never leaves you. It just changes form and multiplies. So, the next time you face a financial decision, don't just ask, how much does it cost? Ask, what will it return? Because the poor pay with fear, the middle class pays with comfort, but the rich invest with faith. Faith in value, faith in growth, and faith in themselves. One of the most expensive mistakes a person can make is trying to earn before they learn. Ignorance is not bliss, it's bankruptcy in slow motion. The rich understand that before they ever make money, they must understand money. Because money, like any other powerful tool, will cut you if you don't know how to use it. It's not enough to have it. You have to know how to keep it, grow it, and protect it. That's why I tell people, financial education is not optional. It's survival. When I was younger, I worked hard, really hard, but I was still broke. I was busy every day, but I wasn't progressing. I didn't understand why. Then one day, my mentor said something that stopped me in my tracks. You're paying the price of ignorance. He was right. I was paying interest on things I didn't understand, bad decisions, missed opportunities, wasted time. He said, you think education is expensive? Try ignorance. That day, I realized that my real problem wasn't money. It was the lack of knowledge about how money worked. The rich don't rely on luck. They rely on laws, the laws of finance, leverage, and value. They study these laws like a doctor studies medicine or a pilot studies flight. They understand that wealth has rules, and those rules reward the informed and punish the unaware. You can't attract wealth if you don't understand the language it speaks. The market is a mirror. It reflects your level of understanding. That's why learning always precedes earning. When I began studying money, everything changed. I started reading books on investing, business, and personal development. I listened to people who had done what I wanted to do. I studied how investors thought, how entrepreneurs built systems, and how leaders multiplied influence. At first, it was overwhelming. There was so much to learn. But little by little, I realized that every principle I mastered added another zero to my future potential. The rich spend time where others spend money. They invest hours into understanding how capital flows, how markets behave, and how people make decisions. They learn before they leap. And when they do leap, they leap with confidence, not guesswork. The poor jump into opportunity with emotion. The rich step into it with education. That's the difference. Here's something I practiced for years. Every month, I would read one financial or personal development book. Every week, I would study one successful investor or entrepreneur. And every 30 days, I would apply one new principle. Just one. It doesn't take massive changes to create massive results. It takes consistent application of what you've learned. Knowledge without application is just potential. Knowledge applied becomes power. Every time you study, every time you learn, every time you practice, you're sharpening the tools that will build your fortune. Because in this world, money doesn't go to the hardest worker, it goes to the wisest thinker. So before you try to earn more, commit to learn more. Before you chase opportunity, prepare for it. Because wealth doesn't come to those who are ready to spend, it comes to those who are ready to understand. The more you learn, the more you see, and when your vision expands, so does your wallet. One of the biggest traps people fall into is confusing the appearance of wealth with the reality of it. The poor want to look rich. The rich want to be rich. It's a subtle difference, but it makes all the difference in the world. You see, the appearance of success is cheap. It just takes a credit card. But the foundation of success? That's costly. It takes patience, discipline, and delayed gratification. And that's why so many never build it, because it doesn't shine immediately. When I was young, I remember meeting a man who drove a modest car, lived in a small home, and dressed simply. I assumed he didn't have much. Later, I found out he owned multiple properties, had no debt, and invested more in a year than most earned in 5. Then I met another man. Fancy suit, luxury car, expensive watch. He looked like a millionaire, but as it turned out, he was drowning in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, one missed payment away from collapse. That was a defining moment for me. I learned that wealth whispers, only insecurity shouts. The poor buy things to prove they're not poor. The rich build things so they never have to prove anything. The poor spend on image. The rich spend on infrastructure. One focuses on display, the other on foundation. And here's the truth. You can't build both at the same time. You either invest in your future or you rent your pride for the weekend. Real wealth comes from assets, things that produce, appreciate, and multiply. Cars, clothes, and gadgets lose value the moment you buy them. But assets, investments, skills, businesses, properties, they grow while you sleep. The poor chase symbols, the rich chase systems. And if you want to attract wealth, you must shift from consuming to creating, from showing to growing. Here's what I learned early on. You must earn your luxuries through leverage, not labor. You can buy that car, that home, that watch, but not until your assets produce them. That's real freedom. Because when you buy luxury with passive income, you're not spending your future, you're enjoying your harvest. But if you buy it with debt and ego, you're mortgaging your destiny. One practical rule I lived by was simple. Track your net worth, not your wardrobe. Don't count how many shoes are in your closet, count how many assets are in your portfolio. The first gives comfort, the second gives control. Before every purchase, I ask myself, will this grow me or will this show me? And most times, the honest answer saved me from financial regret. We live in a world obsessed with image, but image fades. The people clapping for your lifestyle won't pay your bills when the music stops. But assets, they don't applaud, they perform. They work silently in the background, multiplying your wealth, funding your freedom, and securing your peace of mind. So don't chase applause, chase assets. Don't buy to impress, buy to progress. Build something real, something that lasts. Because someday, when the noise fades and the spotlight moves, you'll still have what truly matters: ownership, independence, and the quiet confidence of someone who built, not borrowed, their success. Everyone wants to be wealthy, but wanting doesn't change your life. Everyone wants, but very few commit. The difference between those who dream of wealth and those who achieve it is not desire, it's discipline. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it's the foundation upon which every fortune stands. Desire will give you energy for a day. Discipline will give you results for a lifetime. When I was younger, I used to think motivation was the secret to success. That if I could just get inspired enough, I'd do the work. But inspiration fades by morning. Discipline wakes up even when you don't feel like it. The rich don't wait to feel ready. They build routines that make readiness automatic. Discipline is doing what you said you'd do, long after the mood you said it in has disappeared. You see, wealth isn't built on excitement. It's built on consistency. Saving $1 may seem small, but do it every day, and you've changed your habits. Investing a little every month may not make headlines, but it builds empires quietly in the background. The poor look for miracles. The rich build systems. When I first started studying success, I didn't have much money, but I had time, and I had a plan. I decided that before I could manage thousands, I needed to manage tens. So, I started saving 10% of everything I earned. It wasn't much, but it was something. And over time, something became significant. That simple act of discipline built a habit, and that habit built a future. The truth is, money doesn't disappear. It simply moves to those who manage it well. Life doesn't reward wishers. It rewards stewards. If you can't handle a little, you won't handle a lot. That's not punishment. That's preparation. Before life gives you abundance, it tests your responsibility. And discipline is how you pass that test. You must learn to face what you fear, especially your finances. Most people ignore their bank accounts because they don't like what they'll see. But ignoring the numbers doesn't change the math. Sit down every week, review your income and expenses, and make it a ritual. The more you pay attention to money, the more it pays attention to you. Automate your habits. Don't rely on willpower, rely on systems. Set automatic savings, automatic investments, automatic transfers. Remove emotion from the equation, because emotion makes you inconsistent, but systems make you unstoppable. Remember, it's not perfection that builds wealth, it's consistency. Miss a day, but don't miss twice. Fall down, but get back faster. I've met people who wanted to be rich, but they were slaves to impulse, buying what they didn't need with money they didn't have, to impress people they didn't like. Wealth doesn't grow in that soil. It grows in the soil of discipline, in those small, boring, consistent actions done long enough to create freedom. So, if you truly desire wealth, stop chasing excitement and start cultivating consistency. Because desire is a wish, discipline is a decision. And that decision, repeated daily, will quietly build a life that others will one day call success. Debt is one of life's most deceptive enemies. It dresses itself as opportunity, promises convenience, and offers comfort. But hidden inside it is a quiet thief that steals your freedom one payment at a time. The moment you owe more than you own, your decisions are no longer entirely yours. You trade liberty for liability. And from that day forward, your future belongs partly to someone else. I've met many people who work hard, they show up early, stay late, and still wonder why they can't seem to move ahead. Often, the reason isn't lack of effort, it's that their past spending controls their present choices. They're paying for yesterday with today's energy. That's the trap of debt. It doesn't just take your money, it takes your peace. You can't plan your future while you're paying for your past. Now, I'm not saying all debt is evil. Used wisely, it can be a tool. But used carelessly, it becomes a trap. The difference lies in intent. The wealthy borrow to build. The poor borrow to consume. One uses credit to grow assets. The other uses it to buy comfort. You have to decide which side you'll be on. If debt helps you make money, it's a servant. If it helps you look rich, it's a master. And believe me, that's not a master you want to serve. When I was younger, I too made mistakes with money. I wanted to look successful before I actually was. But one day, a mentor said to me, "You can't fake wealth, you can only delay it." That hit me hard. From that moment, I made a new rule. I would only borrow to build something that could pay me back, never to satisfy a craving or impress a crowd. The first step toward freedom is awareness. Write down every debt you owe. Face it honestly. Then make a plan to eliminate consumer debt first. Credit cards, loans, anything that costs you interest without bringing a return. Don't just make minimum payments. Make a commitment Every dollar you put toward debt is a dollar you buy back of your future. It's not just money, it's freedom returning home. Once you've cleared the noise, use credit only to create, to invest, not indulge. If it doesn't grow you or your wealth, don't touch it. Live beneath your means, not because you love frugality, but because you love freedom. It's a powerful thing when your income belongs fully to you again, when your paycheck isn't already spent before it arrives. That's when you begin to breathe, to plan, to dream again. Some people think living on less means living small, but that's not true. It means living smart. It means understanding that real freedom isn't in the number of things you own, but in the number of choices you have. Every debt you eliminate is one more door unlocked. So, if you're serious about wealth, make it your mission to master money before money masters you. Control what you owe, and you control your destiny. Because debt destroys freedom, but discipline, awareness, and control restore it. And when freedom returns, so does possibility. Simplicity, that's the word most people overlook when they talk about wealth. Everyone wants complex systems, fancy strategies, or secret formulas. But the truth is, complexity kills execution. It makes you pause, hesitate, and overthink until the opportunity passes. Wealth, on the other hand, thrives in simplicity, in clear, consistent action that even a child could understand and repeat. The greatest fortunes were not built by those who knew everything, but by those who mastered a few simple things and did them every single day. I've seen people who read every finance book, attend every seminar, and follow every new investment trend, yet their bank accounts remain the same. Why? Because they confuse activity with progress. They've built complex castles of ideas, but never laid a single brick of action. Simplicity is what gets the brick laid. Complexity keeps you thinking about which kind of brick to buy. You see, the mind loves complication. It feels intelligent when things are difficult. But wealth doesn't reward difficulty. It rewards discipline. In my own journey, I learned this lesson the hard way. There was a time I had notebooks full of plans, but my wallet stayed empty. One day, I realized I didn't need a dozen strategies. I just needed one that worked and the discipline to do it daily. That's when everything started to change. I simplified my goals, reduced my distractions, and made my system so clear that I couldn't ignore it. I automated my savings. I decided on a fixed percentage to invest every month. I created a one-page plan that reminded me what mattered most. Suddenly, managing money wasn't exhausting anymore. It was effortless. That's the beauty of simplicity. It gives you clarity. And clarity gives you energy. When your finances are simple, you make faster, better decisions. You stop wondering what to do next, and you start doing it. You stop reacting to money, and you start directing it. Every automated transfer, every clear plan, every simplified routine, it frees up mental space for creativity, opportunity, and growth. The problem with complexity is that it hides procrastination. It makes you feel productive while you're really avoiding what matters. But when you simplify, there's nowhere to hide. The path becomes obvious. Spend less than you earn, save automatically, invest consistently, and review regularly. That's it. Do that for years, not weeks, and your life will transform. So start today. Write your financial plan on one page, clear goals, timelines, and actions. Automate your savings, your investments, your bill payments. Remove every distraction that pulls you away from what matters. The endless scrolling, the impulse buys, the comparison traps. Wealth loves order. Poverty thrives in chaos. Remember this. The rich aren't smarter, they're clearer. They've learned that simplicity isn't boring, it's powerful. Complexity consumes energy, time, and focus, while simplicity multiplies it. When you simplify your money, you amplify your results. And soon, you'll discover that real sophistication isn't found in doing more, it's found in mastering less. Because simplicity creates wealth, and complexity quietly consumes it. One of the biggest mistakes people make in the pursuit of wealth is trying to expand before they protect. They want to build skyscrapers without first laying a solid foundation. But wealth built without protection is like a house built on sand. It might look impressive for a while, but the first storm exposes the weakness. Before you expand, you must secure. Before you multiply, you must fortify. That's the law of lasting prosperity. Early in my career, I met a man who earned a fortune in just a few years. Quick success, flashy lifestyle, big risks. But he ignored the basics. He didn't insure his business, he overextended his credit, and he thought the good times would last forever. When the economy shifted, he lost nearly everything. Not because he wasn't smart, he was brilliant, but he built fast instead of building strong. That's when I learned speed means nothing if you're driving without brakes. Protection is not fear, it's wisdom. The rich don't play defense out of insecurity. They do it out of intelligence. They know that the first responsibility of wealth is to endure. Protecting your income means having emergency reserves, not as a luxury, but as armor. Protecting your assets means diversifying, so one failure doesn't wipe out your future. Protecting your health means maintaining the energy to create and enjoy what you've built. What good is financial wealth if physical or emotional bankruptcy takes it away? I tell people, before you buy your first investment property, make sure you have your financial house in order. Before you chase a new business idea, make sure your current one is secure. Before you reach for higher returns, make sure your foundation can handle the weight. You don't plant trees in shallow soil. You dig deep, anchor roots, then let them grow. This philosophy applies to every area of life. Protect your relationships before you pursue expansion in business. Protect your reputation before you chase attention. Protect your peace before you chase applause. Because the truth is, protection doesn't slow success, it preserves it. Without a foundation, growth becomes fragile. With one, it becomes unstoppable. So, how do you apply this? Start by creating a safety net. Have at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved, not as an afterthought, but as a rule. Ensure what you can't afford to lose: your income, your business, your health. Review your financial structure regularly. Eliminate unnecessary risks. Tighten loose ends, and stay organized. Then and only then should you focus on expansion. Because here's what I've learned. Life rewards those who build with wisdom, not just ambition. The rich don't grow recklessly, they grow securely. They understand that wealth without protection is an illusion, and that real freedom is found not just in making money, but in knowing it's safe. So, before you dream of how high you can go, make sure you've secured how far you won't fall. Protect before you expand, because what's guarded grows, and what's neglected eventually goes. If you want to change your financial destiny, you must first change your question. Most people spend their lives asking, "What can I buy?" But the wealthy, they ask, "What can I build?" That one shift separates consumers from investors. Consumers live for the moment, investors live for the future. Consumers trade money for things that fade, investors trade money for things that grow. It's not just about what you do with your money, it's about how you think about it. When I was young, I was a spender. The moment I earned a little extra, I thought about what I could get. A new suit, a better car, maybe a night out. It felt good for a while. But at the end of each month, I had little to show for all my effort. Then I met a man who changed the way I thought about money. He said, "Don't buy things that take money out of your pocket. Buy things that put money in." That single sentence became one of the great turning points in my life. You see, consumers are emotional. Investors are intentional. A consumer buys what he wants now. An investor asks, "What will this cost me long term?" or "What could it pay me later?" A consumer thinks about comfort. An investor thinks about cash flow. And the truth is, you can't build freedom if your dollars are all working for someone else. Every time you spend, you're making someone else rich, the owner of the brand, the landlord, the shareholder. The question is, when will you become the owner? The rich know how to delay gratification. They find joy not in the purchase, but in the progress. When they get money, they don't rush to spend it. They assign it a job. They make their dollars employees. Every dollar must work, must produce, must multiply. And if a dollar isn't working, they fire it and put it somewhere it will. That's how investors think, not in terms of what they can consume, but in terms of what they can create. If you want to develop that mindset, start tracking your money. Look at where it goes. How much of what you earn goes toward assets, things that appreciate, things that produce, and how much goes toward consumption, things that depreciate and disappear. If most of your money flows toward things that lose value, it's time to redirect the current. Invest in education. That's the first and safest investment. Learn the language of wealth, assets, equity, returns, cash flow. Then move into ownership, stocks, real estate, small businesses. Don't worry about starting big. Just start. A few dollars consistently invested is far more powerful than thousands occasionally spent. And remember, this shift isn't just about money, it's about identity. When you think like an investor, you move from survival to strategy, from reaction to intention. You stop living by default and start living by design. So, the next time you're about to spend, pause and ask yourself, is this buying me pleasure or is it buying me power? Because the truth is simple. Consumers build expenses. Investors build empires. Choose which one you'll become. If there's one lesson that wealth teaches you, it's that money is replaceable, but time is not. You can lose a fortune and rebuild it, but you can never relive a wasted day. The poor trade their hours for dollars. The rich trade ideas for freedom. Time, not money, is the real currency of life. The way you spend your hours determines the way you'll live your years. When I was younger, I worked tirelessly, 12, sometimes 14 hours a day. I believed that success was hidden somewhere inside the long hours. But one day, I realized I wasn't running toward my dream. I was running on a treadmill, busy but not productive, working hard but not moving forward. That's when I learned that effort isn't enough. Efficiency matters more. The question isn't how hard are you working, but how smart are you using your time. The rich understand that time is their greatest asset. They protect it, prioritize it, and purchase more of it whenever possible. You'll rarely see them doing everything themselves, not because they're lazy, but because they're leveraged. They delegate what doesn't multiply their value. They buy speed. They hire help. They automate tasks. Because every hour spent on low-value activity is an hour stolen from vision, creation, and wealth. Most people are trapped in the illusion of busyness. Their schedules are full, but their progress is small. They confuse motion with momentum. But the rich, they guard their focus like a treasure. They know that every distraction, every interruption, every just a minute costs them compound growth. They live by design, not default. They audit their time as carefully as their finances because they know lost time compounds in reverse. So, the first step toward mastering time is awareness. Audit your day. Write down how you spend every hour for a week. You'll be shocked to see how much of your day is consumed by the trivial, scrolling, reacting, waiting, wandering. Once you see it, you can start cutting it. The second step is leverage. Ask yourself, what could I automate? What could I delegate? Hire someone, use a tool, build a system, anything that buys back your time. The third step is reinvestment. Don't fill that freed time with noise. Fill it with knowledge. Use it to read, plan, or think. Because thinking time is where wealth is born. I learned long ago that the poor say, I can't afford help. But the rich say, I can't afford to waste time. The difference in those two statements defines their destiny. The rich pay for speed. They'd rather buy a solution today than struggle for months to figure it out alone. So if you want to build wealth, stop measuring your success by income alone. Measure it by how much of your time belongs to you. Because the goal isn't to make a living, it's to design a life. And when you master your minutes, the money will follow. Time is the richest currency you'll ever hold. Spend it wisely, and it will pay you for a lifetime. As we come to the end of this conversation on wealth and thinking, remember, money is not the goal, it's the reflection. It mirrors who you've become, the discipline you've built, and the wisdom you've applied. Wealth doesn't respond to wishing, it responds to working on yourself, on your habits, and on your philosophy. If you leave here with one truth, let it be this: the rich don't think different because they're rich. They're rich because they think different. They've trained their minds to see value where others see cost, to act when others hesitate, and to learn while others complain. That's the shift that changes everything. So, from today, take charge of your thoughts, audit them, refine them, replace fear with faith, and scarcity with strategy. Don't chase wealth, attract it through growth, discipline, and purpose. Because when you become the kind of person wealth can trust, it will always find you. The invitation is simple. Change your mind, and your money will follow. The future is already waiting, not for more effort, but for more awareness. The question is, will you think like the rich or live like the rest? The choice, my friend, is entirely yours.